Welcome.
Oh, send feeds.
Okay.
Post. Sweet. And then pin that. Good to go.
Sweet. Okay.
Yay.
What's going on, Lynette? How you doing over there?
Cool.
Sweet. Well, thanks all for tuning in and saying hi to everybody. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things today.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I wanted to take the time to invite Aubrie down here to share with us a little bit of her own insights with her own story that's brought her to where she is in her life. There's a lot of personal stuff, I'm sure, a lot of exciting things. It's often people that are in the sharing caring industry, that are in the service industry, where the things that helped them, they realize they can no longer keep it to themselves because it was so helpful for them that it's almost impossible to stop them from sharing it with anybody and everybody that will listen.
Yeah.
And so I got a chance to meet you through the interwebs and have that conversation.
Thanks, Instagram.
Yeah. And so you are a fitness professional.
Yes.
You are a yoga teacher
Yes.
as part of that. And then you also have 24 alternative certifications.
Yep.
Is that correct?
Yes.
That's a lot of
Working on my
continuing,
25th and 26th.
And that would be, and now you're also an NLP master practitioner as well,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Excellent. So 24 alternative certifications, yoga, and then fitness professional as well as NLP.
Mm-hmm.
How does NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, and yoga overlap in your world? That seems like a unique perspective.
Yeah, that's a really great question. And my first realm of understanding about personal development
Yeah.
and understanding the insights into our own mind and what's going on, and especially how we communicate to ourselves, was through yoga.
Okay.
And when I went to Yoga Works when I was like 17,
Yeah.
I remember thinking one day, like, yoga works, you're supposed to work. And then I thought of the other way of the ambiguity, that yoga works. And it works, like we work.
I love that.
And that got me to dive into the deeper perception and ideology of yoga, which yoga is not just the stretches, it's the whole life. Yoga is the methodology of how you approach your life.
Okay.
So specifically with like the yamas and the niyamas, the methodologies, kind of the morals of yoga. The first
Morals of
moral
yoga.
is
Okay.
ahimsa. So ahimsa is nonviolence.
Mm.
And at that time in my life, there was kind of self-inflicted violence towards how I'm appreciating myself. Or granted, like not appreciating at the point.
Right.
And so that got me diving into what self-development is. Developing yourself, understanding that the way that you're thinking and the way that you're perceiving all this stuff is malleable and changeable.
Okay.
Stepping into that a decade later now, I'm 27, and 3 years ago I came across a seminar that was a client of mine, shout out Matt Browning from Evolution Seminars. I was working at my gym, and we were talking about leadership, and he was like, oh, I run leadership seminars. And I go to his leadership seminar and I learn about this thing called NLP.
Right.
Like, what is this NLP stuff? Okay,
Yeah.
what's it all about?
Right.
And neuro-linguistic programming is neuro, the brain, linguistic, language, and programming. So the programming of the language of our brain.
Programming of the language of our brain.
Yeah,
Okay.
so there's a lot of overlap in the way that it's taking the step back from your situation and seeing your situation as a situation instead of reality, and you're in that, bubble of what you're going through.
Okay.
It's to perceive things from an outside perspective.
Okay.
To look at them and say, this is what's going on, and then ask yourself, is this the way things need to be or can be, or
Okay.
can it be different? How can it be different?
I love that.
Yeah, it's so much fun to bring it into play now. Even like when I'm teaching yoga classes, I bring in NLP. When I'm doing NLP, I'm doing the morning stretches at like the seminars and stuff. So
That's awesome.
it's had a lot of interplay. So I really like that question.
So in the Venn diagram of that, the mind, body, social circle, Like,
Yeah.
all of those are kind of aligned now, and you're operating from the center of kind of all of those places now.
Yes,
That's really cool.
absolutely.
Yeah. So how do you do that? So what do you do when you're operating from that place right now?
So I have a kind of a step back perspective when I'm communicating with other people. I'm observing the nature of their communication, and by the way that people are observing their model of the world, is there a way that I can creatively adjust my language or create deeper connection and communication with people by stepping into their model of the world?
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you go to meet the client where they are.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very fun.
Yeah, even into like the linguistics of what people use. If somebody observes their reality from a kinesthetic standpoint, where you can tell that they use a lot more feeling words. Oh, that feels nice. Oh, I want to grab a hold of that situation.
Yeah.
I want to understand the information. I could direct my language in a way that's more kinesthetic because I'm understanding, I'm making a mind read that that's how they're working. So I'm going to actually create better communication with them by just switching my language a little bit.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that idea of like felt sense versus seeing versus hearing, right? Each one of those are different ways that we take in information, and we kind of collect that information, assimilate it into a belief, story, meaning, narrative, and then act upon that, right?
100%.
So
Yeah.
Stephen Porges, he's the polyvagal theory, like it's his theory, right? So fight, flight, freeze.
Oh yeah, cool.
He has this concept of neuroception, which is knowing from the sense of your, on a neurological level, like it's all of that together combined to decide if it's a yes or no for you. Like it's a yes for me, Nigel. Like we're gonna go to right.
Yeah.
Where it's it's an extrasensory like sense, but it's not extrasensory. It's just a combination of how are your organs feeling, how's your blood sugar feeling right now, are you hot or cold, do you have a memory of this feeling before that maybe informs how you're actually influenced by that?
Yeah.
Is this a person you can emote with and feel safe to do that? Are they scowling at you? Right? All of these things that you're not consciously aware of, but absolutely inform how you're feeling about a situation. Seeing a situation, hearing the situation.
Yeah.
So that's
in like NLP jargon terminology, we say that there's 2.3 million bits of information that are hitting our nervous system every second and every moment.
What?
There's a lot going on.
That's impossible.
And through our own filters of our five senses, and then our stories, our beliefs, our values, our attitudes, our maybe fears even, or traumas, we filter the 2.3 million bits of information into 126 bits.
Wow.
So you can see that sometimes it gets filtered a certain way.
Yeah.
And
There's an inherent bias on there, isn't there?
Yes, perfect, exactly. There's an inherent bias within the way we're observing reality. So what we want to work with is if there is unbeneficial patterns in our life, we work with the 126. And we observe that, okay, we are filtering it a certain way, and what is our inherent bias? And maybe we could bias something else or some other way.
So if that bias isn't serving the person, and that bias is actually creating a piece of that situation,
Yes.
then that gives you something to play with when you understand that and pull back. And if you can play with something, then you have an opportunity to see a different way of it being, and then you can kind of see past the problem. Cool.
Absolutely. Noticing that the problem is, and even by the nature of a problem, this is why I like the work that most likely you do with clients as well, and I do. It's like when you call something a problem, you're also inherently saying that there's a solution, because by the nature of a problem, there would be a solution. If there wasn't a solution, well, then it's not a problem anyways. You don't need to worry
reality,
about it.
right?
Yeah.
It's not something you can worry about. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. That's awesome. So when you're doing yoga and you're instructing people in that seems, the language of yoga and neurolinguistics seem divergent, would be fair, because yoga is an ancient practice, right? Like it's not archaic because we do it every day, but it's definitely an ancient one. And neurolinguistic programming seems like it's pretty new, like it's been around since like 1970s-ish, right?
Yep, around 1975 is when they started to call the structure and the framework of these techniques neurolinguistic programming.
Got it.
However, it's something that we do on an everyday basis throughout our life, so people have been doing it for thousands of years.
Right.
And yoga just, I like to say, like, all trails connect. You know, the way that yoga approaches things is similar, but it's different, but it's also very similar, and the overlapping is is enough to observe it as overlapping.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like that. So how did you, when you were 17, you went to Yoga Works to do some work?
Yeah.
And that
to get flexible, because I played soccer a lot.
Okay.
It just seemed like fun.
And then how do you get to NLP in that story for yourself?
I didn't know about NLP until I went to the seminar when they said, here's NLP. And when, so I wanted to be, or I thought I wanted to be, or had like an feeling that being a life coach would be cool.
Yeah.
Because my observation of life had switched dramatically from my teenage years to my early 20s.
Yep.
And I was getting a lot of affirmations from other people saying like words such as inspiring, or I'm becoming a certain type of person. So I was like,
cool.
Okay, and if I'm being a teacher and like a yoga teacher, there's some kind of leadership mentality with that. And then I wanted to be a life coach, but I didn't know what to do. And I didn't want to do online courses because, like, how am I supposed to work with people if I'm doing, like, an online course? I really want to learn how to connect to people.
Yeah.
And when I learned about the seminar and I went to the seminar, it was like, here, you can be certified as a life coach by practicing NLP.
Awesome.
And so that's when I, like, jumped into it. And it's been 3 years ever since. And it's literally become such a big part of my world. And I'm so grateful for it because it helped me frame a lot of the ideas that I was already stepping into and put like, okay, here's the actual technique and the structure of a linguistic framework that can teach other people the same way that you're thinking.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, it was super fun.
So 3 years now with NLP. That's a long time. Messing with
a long time.
Words, reframes, emotions, shifting through different types of perceptions and understandings. What's some of the biggest shifts you've seen, either in yourself or with the people that you work with? Because that's the stories of these, I think, are important for people that aren't acquainted to understand that things could be different, to feel a sense of hope from where they are now, right?
Yeah. So as far as like fears and phobias go, NLP does a lot of work with switching the way that we identify with our fears, or the way that we observe our fears and what's going on internally. So I've seen phobias been like completely released, like fear of flying, fear of drowning, and then with me, I had a fear of stage fright. For instance, like before I would even teach some yoga classes, I would like shake and I would feel this like active energy within me. Right? I would call it anxiety, but I wouldn't call it anxiety now. It was just a thing going on inside of me, and I perceived it a certain way.
Right.
Now, though, it's literally switched to where I feel confidence. I feel calm. I go up on stage and I don't see things the way that I see them.
Okay.
And the way that the technique works with NLP is when you think about a feeling, and better yet, when you feel the feeling, you can observe the feeling.
Yep.
Maybe even being in a certain space. If you have anxiety, sometimes it's like in your gut. Maybe it's even a certain shape or texture, or maybe it's even moving. Just observing it changes it because you take this new perspective upon it. And with the technique of NLP, you go in there and you, knowing that you are at cause for your life and you have all the resources that you need to achieve your desired outcome, you change it.
I love that.
And so now when I step on stage, I don't have those feelings anymore. So that's one of, like, to me, that's smaller than some of the bigger things that has changed in my reality as far as...
But it's a tangible one, right?
So tangible.
So you're a yoga instructor. You make your living teaching other people. It's something you're passionate about. You change other people's lives through that practice.
Yeah.
You know movement's important, and it's the mind-body connection.
Yeah.
It's a chance to feel calm. It's a chance to be present in your body. And then before you go in to teach this, historically, you have this feeling of like, whatever that is.
Like, oh shit.
Yeah. And so now you don't have that feeling. You instead have a sense of confidence. And that's from NLP techniques.
Yes.
Okay.
From actually certain, like, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, here's what you can do to switch your emotive response to certain situations.
And you said some terms there, like anxiety versus a physiological sensation in your body.
Yeah.
So there's the somatic experience of you feeling something in your body.
Yes.
And all of those sensations we decide to put a label on And then whether that label is useful or not wouldn't necessarily change the feeling in your body, but it would change your emotional reaction to that feeling, which would then change how you would be able to act based upon that emotion.
Yep.
Is that super lit?
So, yeah, exactly. Because you're changing it from a meaning and a defining, like, idea that of what's going on to an observation.
Interesting.
So you're taking the meaning out of it.
Yep.
And you're observing what is there, not the meaning that's there, not saying this is anxiety. It's like, what is this? Oh, it's a feeling.
Okay.
What else could this mean?
Interesting.
What else could it not be?
Yeah.
What is it? When isn't it there? And you start to, because in NLP it's we're not reductionists. So you're not getting rid of anything. You're not getting rid of any feelings or blah, blah, blah. What you're doing is you're opening yourself up to the possibilities of what it could be.
Got it.
And different possibilities.
Yeah.
And when you start to see a possibility that's more ecological, meaning it's good for you, it's good for others, good for the planet, good for the universe, you're going to go there because it makes more sense.
Because it's just more effortless that way. And your body always goes towards the least amount of resistance, right?
Yeah. It feels good.
It's interesting. In addiction, they talk about having an urge that comes up, and then knowing that urge, you created an automatic, habituated response where there's no longer a thought process in it, right?
Yes.
And so you have an urge, you do the thing that you do when you have that urge, right? And then you do that so often or so much because you're either in a situation that triggers that, or that's your one thing for the many things, right?
Yeah.
Like, so for me, if it was drinking coffee when I feel like anxious or whatnot, right? And then the more situations I feel anxious in, the more likely I'm going to be drinking that coffee.
Yes.
And then it's a habit and it's habituated. And now I don't even think about it. And I may not even notice that that is something that I've chosen to do and developed over time and learned and now act that way.
Yeah.
And now it's just, oh no, I'm a coffee drinker.
Yeah.
That's all I do. It's fine. Don't worry, right? And that's a pretty benign example, but if it was heroin or something else, it'd be a little bit more dramatic, right?
Yeah, and that's the special part about a lot of the work that I do is I worked at a drug and alcohol rehab for 3 years. And so to observe the pattern behavior, and I've had issues, my thing was more with food, and I had like what I would see it now as a pretty, I mean, I didn't like it. I didn't think it was fun. I wouldn't call it an addiction because I don't want to use that word because that word attaches so many other meanings to it. So when you're calling yourself like addicted to something, what else are you saying too? And so I try to release a lot of the words and make it more of a generalized, like, this was just going on. So with addicts, and to put it in NLP terms, you might have a picture in your mind. And especially with people, okay, let's say someone's drinking alcohol and it's nighttime and they're like, they know they shouldn't be because obviously like what's going on in society, it's like you probably shouldn't be having shots every night. Just saying, there's maybe things that could happen to your body. So we observe these reactions, but then we also have these internal feelings. And if somebody is going home at night and then they haven't had a drink yet, what are they thinking? When they think, oh, I should have a drink, what is the first thing that comes to their mind as well as that? It's probably some kind of internal representation, picture a movie, that they're going to be relaxed, hanging out with friends, taking shots, having a good time. What they're not remembering or seeing in that moment, the picture that's not playing, is them the next morning waking up with a hangover, feeling like shit, like empty wallet, you know? It's that internal representation of relaxing that is essentially harming them because it's keeping the habitual pattern going because of the automatic response that's triggered in our neurology when we think a certain way. Now in NLP, how can we attach when someone has that first thought of, should I have a drink? We go to the one in the morning where they don't feel well, and we use these maybe negative emotions to become a resource to stop the habit. Because then they'll switch from thinking about that. They'll remember, oh yeah, it doesn't feel good to do that. And then slowly the habit can go away because they stop lighting up their brain with all the good times and they start lighting up the brain with maybe more of the negative times for use of a positive resource.
Yeah, that makes sense. So they're taking into account the larger picture instead of just the immediate gratification, right? So they're like, okay, so it's not, yes, this is how it begins, but it doesn't end there either. I've done this enough to know how it truly ends, and now when I choose that beginning, I'm also choosing that ending. Is that ending truly something that I want right now? Is that actually a relaxing ending?
Right.
No. It's actually, I'm like laying down, but I'm still spinning and feeling nauseous and dehydrated, and that's not a relaxing image, right? It kind of reminds me of a joke where when you buy a puppy, if you've been around long enough and you've read any story about any dog ever, any movie about any dog ever, you know you're going to be saying goodbye to that dog.
Yeah.
And that's a sad thing.
Oh, yeah.
But it doesn't stop us from buying the puppy.
No.
Nor should it. So it's an unapt analogy in that situation.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to think about what that all means all the way through, and how that thought process is important can be useful strategy to change behavior. Because there's a lot of people that also are like having a somatic experience prior to taking a test, because they imagine the importance of that test. If it doesn't go well, they create this image of how it could be. That's completely imaginary and may not be based upon reality at all.
Yeah.
But they're imagining this perceived negative outcome, and then that stops them from being able to be in the moment and really truly use all their resources to make the best choices on those tests.
Yeah.
And then in the effect, that fear or that thought or that belief or that idea actually creates that outcome.
Yeah. And right there in those moments, what we want to do as practitioners, when I have clients, with myself, with friends, however I can help share this message, that knowing the moment that you tune in to that fear and observing it,
Awesome.
that's where the change is. That's the leverage, is to create autonomy or help an individual see their own autonomy, that they can do this. They can see themselves, they can see their understanding of what's going on, and they can see when the fear goes into play, and they can have a resource, a technique, something else to get them into a confident state, to know that they'll do great on the test. And if by any means some things happen where they don't do as great, that it's going to be okay.
Yeah. They can still imagine it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
I think Tim Ferriss has got something about that, right? He deals with some very intense thoughts and beliefs, ideas, and he's a pretty obsessive person. Clearly.
Yeah, he's cool.
And he talks about imagining the worst possible outcome, planning for that, and then alleviating his fear so that he can just be in the moment. I think it's an interesting strategy.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly, though, because if you already expected the worst and you made yourself okay with that, then everything else is going to be better, because most likely the worst isn't going to happen.
Right. Yeah.
If it does, you'll be prepared anyway, so
then you're good.
Yeah.
Right? So then there's no problem.
Yes.
Because you've already solved the problem.
Yeah.
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 That's fun.
Cool.
So when you were using this work for yourself, was there a fear or phobia, a negative outcome you were looking for? Was there like a switch you were trying to make? Were you trying to create an image in the bigger picture? How did you apply this work for yourself to see significant change?
Okay, so one of the biggest examples that changed is my understanding of love and what love is.
Interesting.
And what I had thought was a perception of like, so I haven't been in a like long-term committed relationship yet, and that made me create so many limiting beliefs, ideas, concepts, things going on that I framed around that. Working through the NLP techniques that I did, I started to literally let myself and allow myself to feel love. And the moment I wake up outside, I look up and I smile. And to feel love doing that, how when I thought there was no love in my life, and that's what I had, I was like, there's no love. But love is, we call it a nominalization. You can't put love in a wheelbarrow. Like, love is not a thing. It's not this thing that you're just like, there's love or there's not love. Love is an action.
Yeah.
And so there's no love, then love.
Right.
Then where can I love more? What can I love more? How can I see love more? And it totally opened up all these doors to what love is.
Yeah.
And my heart is so much more full than it was, because what I thought wasn't there actually has always been there the entire time. I just didn't see it in that way.
You weren't looking for it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's fun.
And so that like popped my bubble of reality, and then there was like the stage fright, and now I'm a lot more continuous with my speaking, and I'm just letting go of these limiting beliefs of there was like this other one where things were either okay or not okay. Like if I did a thing, it was not okay. Like I should not drink that coffee or something. It's not okay.
And in the fitness field, that's a kind of a common thing, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
these are the okay foods, and these are the bad foods. And if you eat those foods, not only are they bad, you're bad for eating them.
You're
right?
bad.
Yeah. And so there's this shame and guilt attached with certain foods.
Yeah.
Right? And I find that fascinating, because like whether I'm eating an apple or I'm eating a piece of cake, like one's going to spike my insulin, one's going to spike my insulin. They both have calories. One has a little bit more nutrients in it, right?
Yeah.
But one's got some eggs and some flour in it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's got some fiber, right?
Yeah.
Now, does it have enough nutrients to just have one of those? But neither does an apple either. If all I ate was apples, I still would be nutrient deficient, right?
Yeah.
So now, but no one's just eating an apple or just eating a cake. We're all eating a multitude of things.
Yeah.
But the fact that the apple's a good food,
Yeah.
and I'm sanctimonious when I choose to eat the apple,
Yeah.
and I'm a terrible, horrible, no good person when I choose the cake, that's very strange. That's a weird belief to have, right?
And it's a really good, thank you for like going over to that route of things, because with food and the identity we give ourselves when we eat certain things, and it's like every moment we can become a different person based upon the food that we're eating, but like time doesn't work like that. Oh, my concept of time changed a lot too. We'll go into that in a second. But like, yeah, exactly what you're saying. It's who are you being, or what is your identity when you're doing these things, and noticing your identity. Good point.
Yeah, I think it's fun. Because we do, a nice way of shifting your identity. So in change is about, a lot of people, oftentimes we notice that we've changed when we've arrived at accomplishing a goal, right? We're like, okay, things are different now, and I know they're different because of this thing, whatever that thing is.
Yeah.
And oftentimes that feeling that we get when we accomplish that thing feels good. You get dopamine, serotonin, whatever. Maybe it's like oxytocin if it's a relationship with someone else, right? But that doesn't always last if it's the achievement piece. And then so sometimes we go, okay, so it's not the having the thing, because we know that has diminishing returns, because that feeling only lasts so long. That's why I need to get a new watch every day. I got a new watch. And diminishing returns of the feeling of having a new watch, new car, bigger house.
Yeah.
More shoes in the closet for some people.
Yeah.
More dogs for other people,
And what's your reality strategy? Like, when are you confirming that it is enough and you are enough? And we get this in the fitness industry. A lot of people that have these, like in the eating disorder world, you're never skinny enough and things like that, because when you get to the goal, it's never good enough. And so, okay, how can you make sure that who you are is enough always?
There you go.
Yeah. And so defining what that value is to you and giving yourself actual tangible evidence, like, this means I'm enough. Oh, this means I'm enough. I'm enough over here too. And you just become enough in a bigger perspective than what you thought was possible before.
Yeah. And I think that story that we're back. That story of enough, that idea, that concept, I think is pretty paramount in capitalist society, right? Like, for sure. And like in the health and fitness field, it's like, okay, are you big enough? Are you strong enough? Right?
Yeah.
Are you fit enough is even a question, right?
Yeah.
And then, are you flexible enough, right? And there's an idea of this progress, where we want to see progress, we want to see health, we want to see change. But if you're setting it up from a perspective where you have to earn the right to be enough, and then you have an external locus of all of that, that means the entire time, let's say I want a double body weight deadlift, right? Which is like a healthy gold standard.
Okay, yeah.
There's a Jim Jones that taught me my undergrad stuff, or not. Yeah, this is when I was undergrad. That was the gold standard for men for strength. If you could do a double body weight deadlift, you were a man. You were not just a man, but you were a strong man. And technically, you probably, in their eyes, you weren't a man unless you could do that, right?
Yeah.
Like, that was like kind of the implication there. So I was like, oh, I guess I'm not a man and I want to be a man. So now I have to do this double body weight deadlift. And then the entire process was not enjoyable, because every day all I was reminded of was how much left there is to arrive before I am a man or strong, instead of accepting like, oh, this is exciting, I'm having fun, look how much stronger I'm getting every day, this is healthy, this is good. And if you're only focused on the outcome, what you choose to do to get there ends up compromising some of the benefit of arriving at the goal in the first place.
Yeah.
Because there's lots of ways to get stronger. Only some of those ways are healthy.
Yeah. So are you going towards, or are you coming from? And if you're going towards, a lot of times you'll never reach where you're trying to get from, because when you remember that you're coming from that space, and you're always there, and the little things you do can mean that I love the words even more. You're even more enough. You're even more of a man. Yeah.
Right.
Knowing that you already were.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a Don Miguel Ruiz, right? He wrote the 4 Agreements.
Yes.
Yeah. So he also has another book out there called Mastery of Self.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite quotes from that book, they talk about setting a goal out of love for yourself. Because you're no longer, love isn't a conditional, what you were talking about.
Yeah.
It's there, it's ever present.
Yeah.
If love becomes conditional, which we're usually conditioned by the people in our life to give us love based upon obedience to whatever ideal or cultural norms, societal norms,
Yeah.
then we've earned the right to operate in that realm. And then we get conditioned by that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we want to be the best or more or whatever, and then more ends up being enough for that situation. So they say, just like you said, I am this, and I'm excited to see how much more of this will look like for me.
Yeah.
And I think that's a kind of an interesting.
And it really changes things, and it generalizes into your whole world. And a lot of these things that we do and these beliefs that we have, we might feel that it's a certain way. Oh, I have to deadlift double my weight, and then I'll be this certain thing.
Yep.
And notice where else in your life that you're not letting yourself be a certain thing that you claim just by putting a word on it, and you have your own definition, which, by the way, probably is a different definition for a lot of other people.
Absolutely.
And so opening that up and seeing if there's how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Right.
Yeah. If there's a certain pattern, it's most likely in other places too.
Yeah.
And so just notice the pattern rather than just the, oh, I have to deadlift. It's like the pattern of what that is, and then that pattern generalizes to the other areas. It becomes more tangible to see because it's not necessarily the behavior, it's the intention behind the behavior.
You got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think another way of framing that, right, like for analogy, because talking about the words we use with the language and the concepts in abstract makes it can be challenging if you're not paying attention and you're trying to multitask, right?
Yeah.
Which I know everybody
is.
If you're watching, you're multitasking. I get it. You're washing dishes, probably best case scenario.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, you've already clicked off and you're doing something else and you're going to miss this message. But Simon Sinek in the Why book, right? Start with Why. He's got this fun quote about the celery test in there. So there's lots of different ways to accomplish something.
Yeah.
And any of those ways are probably just as effective as any other way.
Yeah.
And when you ask people in your social circle, I'm trying to accomplish this, everybody, because you've told them what you're trying to accomplish, is excited for you. And they'll be like, guess what? You should do it this way, and you should do it this way, and you should do it this way. And all of those aren't right or wrong. The question becomes, which one is the most valuable to you? So why are you doing this thing? So if the goal is, say, to lose weight, and someone's like, oh, you should go on a juice cleanse. Oh, you should go on a water cleanse.
Celery.
Oh, you should go on it, right? And then, or someone's like, oh, you should go keto, or oh, you should go vegan, or oh, you should go Atkins, or you should go, I don't know, I could keep going.
Yeah,
right?
all of it.
Yeah. Pescatarian, right? Like, the question then becomes, okay, sure, those are all options to lose weight, but that's not the only option. Maybe I cut off my arm. I'm definitely lighter with one less arm.
True.
Right?
So true.
So then there's lots of ways to get there. The
Yeah.
question is, what is valuable to you that's important? Okay.
Yeah.
And then if we can look at the way that fits into those values, now it doesn't matter how many different people suggest things to you, how many different options there are. It gets whittled down pretty quick to something that's kind of a little more concrete and specific to you, that would not be specific to someone else, because it takes into account who you are, why you want to accomplish it, and then that gives us the action plan and the steps and the incentives and the resources.
Yeah.
Because if you're like, you gotta be Atkins, bro, and I'm like, but I hate butter and cheese.
Like,
I'm lactose intolerant. You're like, no, man, Atkins are nothing. Then that's not a very effective strategy, right?
Exactly. And when you're telling someone that, like, this is what they should do, or even in like the rehab scenario, when someone's like, this is how you get sober, and then someone does that, and 10 years later they're still trying to follow the same method, and they're like, well, it's not working because it's me. It's like, well, it might be because the way that you're framing how you should do things is someone else's idea, and you're trying too hard to be going down that route.
Yeah.
And what I love being an NLP practitioner is that we don't give advice. That is not the way. We ask questions, because I don't know someone's reality.
Right.
I don't know the answers for them.
Right.
They do, because their answers are literally going to be what works for them, because it's coming from them. It's not me saying you should do this. It's me saying, well, where is everything that you can do this? And then they answer that, and it becomes their answer, because they'll trust what they say.
Yeah.
Because they're creating it.
Yeah,
It makes so much
for
more
sure.
sense. So that's why I love the space that NLP holds in the practitioner-client standpoint.
So you never actually sound like an overbearing mother at all.
Listen, honey, this is how you should do things. No.
That's not an effective way, right?
No.
Yeah, that's fun. So we got a lot of people here saying hi.
Hi.
I'm I'm excited that they joined. I would ask somebody if they want to send some questions in, but we can save that. We'll see what happens if anybody says they want to.
Yeah.
Let's see. Did anybody ask any questions?
Cool.
Is NLP more acceptable in the spiritual world or in the scientific world?
Wow.
So that was a fun question.
That's a really cool question.
Yeah.
I would say yes.
Excellent. Simple answer.
And
Excellent.
I'll give you an example, actually, because I do have friends that come from a little bit more of the yoga world, and then I have friends that are in the NLP land. And it's super similar, and in the way that we can use our terminology, right? In the spiritual realm, people say things along the lines of, oh, well, my higher self gave me guidance that this was going to be the right thing to do. Oh, well, my higher self told me. And they're saying something that there is this intrinsic guidance system within their own understanding of life that helps them achieve the outcome they want. In NLP land, we use more so the term unconscious mind. That we have our conscious filters of reality, and then we do have this deeper sense of our whole life story that can help us with certain answers and things like that. I have found them very effective in both realms.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very fun.
That's a really cool question. Because it is a little, sorry.
No.
But NLP, when it first came out, it started to get called magic. Because how fast can you make a change? That.
Right.
In the psychiatry book for curing a phobia, it says that it takes 15 years to cure a phobia. 15 years! Mind you, you have the phobia for all those 15 years still.
Right.
NLP, we say, okay, let's understand how this internal process and the movie is playing. The story doesn't matter. A lot of NLP is content free. It's how is your current state presenting that story, presenting that reality that is yours. And it's so real, and the feelings are so real. But with our phobia process, it takes around 15 to 30 minutes to make a drastic change, if not an entire change of the phobia.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I asked you a little bit about what you led you here. I asked you a little bit about some of your own personal successes and benefit from it, and some of your clients as well. Do you have any practical advice for anybody out there that's maybe could use some help? Whether that's coming from your 24 alternative certifications, whether that's coming from a fitness instructor with a lot of years experience from the yoga world with movement, right, and mindfulness in the body, or from being a master NLP practitioner. What practical application do you feel like would be best suited on message for what we had today?
Observe what words you're using.
And why is that
literally
important?
The framework of your sentence?
Ooh.
Because I am depressed is drastically different than I have depressed moments. I have depressive states. I am depressed. Using that word, by the nature of that sentence, it is an identity statement. So there's me and there's depressed. We call it a complex equivalence. So everywhere I go, this identity of depressed goes. However, with emotions are up and down, they come and go. A depressed state is an emotion. By the nature of states, they come and go. So you detach that identity and turn it into a sometimes thing, where you can notice when it's there and you can notice when it's not there, and break up this strong hold and grip of this word that you had.
Right. Reminds me of that old joke where it's like, hey, you would say, so just say your name. Hi, I'm
Aubrie.
Hi, I'm hungry.
Hi, yeah.
Right? Like, am I my sensation in my body at this time, or am I more than just that, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's that's my old dad joke, right?
Yeah,
so,
and
sorry.
When we and when we talk about situations, about other people and things like that, rather than saying, oh, my dad's a brick wall, he's closed off emotionally, it's like I turn into like my observation of, rather than saying they are this and you're pointing the finger and your PTFD, point the finger disorder, you're going, oh, this is how I'm understanding. And you're coming from this basis of you understand that what you're seeing might be different, and it most likely is different than what a lot of other people see.
Absolutely.
And when you start to see that and you stop claiming such harsh realities for other people's experience, I feel like it's brought a lot more compassion into the state, because you could see, well, what is important to them? And what does it mean to them? I could look at a 400-pound man and be like, wow, he doesn't give a shit about himself. But I could also see what's important to him, and he could be the best dad ever. Because there's other things that's important to him. So you learn to help spread out your vision of what you're saying. Yeah, so literally the words that you use, it's the sentence structure matters a lot.
Yeah, because even with your I am depressed, right?
Yeah.
Even if the idea is there are times that my depression is not that bad.
Yeah.
There are definitely times where it's okay.
Yeah. Have you ever had an orgasm with your lover? Bet you weren't depressed then.
Right,
what was
in that one
like?
moment, right?
Like, there's times when the depressed isn't there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then expanding those opportunities from that spot, right?
Yeah. Another really cool example is I want to lose weight. What do you do when something's lost?
Right.
Try and find it.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm releasing weight, giving it back to the universe or something like that.
Yeah.
There's a different mindset with it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting that you're talking about like the thoughts of this and then how that affects physiology, or the physiology that you have. You can either reinforce that with your belief in your story. Like at a certain point it's top down or bottom up, but at a certain point wherever you put the intervention at, you have an opportunity like to respond instead of react, which is very like Viktor Frankl, like logotherapy assumption there, right? Like that's like a presumptive, not a supposition of the theory of NLP, right? And how it affects. And it's interesting that you mentioned the weight aspect of it, because the autonomic nervous system kind of regulates adipose tissues, which is the fancy name for fat, right? Which is just like storage, and it regulates both the brown and the white fat. And you said something earlier that I thought was super interesting. When we're cold, it's kind of chilly out here, we could like chatter and shake, right? And that's normal.
Yeah. When
we get in stressful situations, it's also normal to tremble. And when you were getting up before your yoga class, you were like, I would like tremble. And what's interesting about that is when you're in a situation where you're not sure if it's safe or not, your body mobilizes situations, right? So it's either going to be flight, right, fight, or freeze if it goes sole mobilization, right? Just like shut down entirely. And all of those are survival strategies that are hardwired into us.
Yeah.
Normal neurological processes that you don't really have a chance to intervene on directly.
Wow.
And then that shuddering when we chatter our teeth or when we shake because we're cold, that mobilizes our brown fat. But when we're stressed out, that's also regulated through our autonomic nervous system, which is the white fat, the white adipose tissue. It would be interesting if when we got stressed, we actually tremored and shook instead of trying to hold it in and like repress it. If we actually just shook in place like dogs do, like other mammals do, like cats do, right? Like you can see that on your cat and your dog after they get scared, right?
Yeah.
If people who were chronically stressed, if they'd had that response, if they'd be less chronically stressed, or if they would be able to regulate not using food, or if their body would actually mobilize that adipose tissue differently. There's people that, it's all hormones, right? And so that's stress and modulating that. So I think it's interesting. Yeah,
and this is what I really appreciate about the work that you do, is connecting the body and the mind. And what I'm learning, that book Smart Moves that I'm reading right now, it's like a lot of times we think that learning is in our mind, and we learn in our mind, but it's like your whole body and all of the dendrites at the end of your nerve cells, and it's like all of that is intaking the whole understanding of what you're learning at the same time. And it's so that goes deep, that wormhole goes deep with the connection between the body and the mind and how our body's reacting. And we do a lot of that work with NLP too.
100%.
It's like just put your body, and we all know this, if you smile, you're more likely to have happier thoughts, or if you hold your chest up high, you're going to be a little bit more confident. Just by the nature of moving yourself to what's going to be more helpful for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The different various ways of knowing and feeling safe and responding to the environment. It's pretty fun. Yeah. It's a lot to play with. And then the meaning that you make from that, and then the identity you form from that meaning. Right? Like that's a lot.
No, but this is the journey. This is the journey of observing yourself, observing your responses, and making decisions that are helpful for you.
Nice.
And getting help when you need it.
So being conscious of the words you're using is a nice way to intervene on that like entire process.
Yeah.
And it's a very cognitive one, so it's something you are in control of, right?
Yeah.
And so you can actually be like, okay, these
Yeah.
are words, this is meaning, I'm making it right now when I choose to say this. Is there something I want to say instead of this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because if you want to go back to the concept of like the spiritual world, like manifestation, that's what they're talking about, law of attraction. It's like these words that you're putting into the incantation of your reality that creates it, and how you observe a situation. And have you ever met someone that went through a pretty negative scenario, and you see them after it and years later even, and it turns out that how they're viewing it is in such a positive light, and you're like, how the heck did someone go through something like that and they have that view of it? It's because they chose it.
Yeah.
It's because they chose to see it in that new light.
Yeah.
And then look at how they're living their life.
Yeah.
And on the opposite side of things, you have people that have an experience and they're in this framework of observing it in a way that's just, it's not helping them, and they know it's not, and maybe they don't know how to get from point A to point B, how to see it differently. And that's where like we come in, and we're like, hey, we can ask questions that can help you with this, because everyone deserves to feel happy and feel however they want to feel. They just need to know that they can choose how they want to feel.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's not so much what they want, it's the power to know that they can choose.
Yes.
That's fun. I have a quote up in my house when I walk out the door every day, and it's by Richard Bear, which I'm a fan of, but it says happiness and joy are choices that are in your control. Right? It's on a little felt board, right? It looks like a nice little Instagram, like Pinterest, like background. Right? And I'm always like, oh, I'll change this every month and take a picture of it. And it's been a year and a half now. It's just up there, and I'm like, that's good to know every day, right?
It's a nice one. Yeah. And you can be sad too. Just know that that's also a choice, and allow yourself to feel it and the emotions that come up. And don't be too toxic positivity. That's like happiness is everywhere,
right?
Because it is, and there's also other things going on too that you can observe.
Well, there's definitely times where I enjoy feeling sad, for sure.
Yeah.
Those Sarah McLachlan commercials with the dogs.
Yeah. That's the nice realm of human experience.
Yeah, the range, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Anything else you want to say before we sign off here?
Ooh. You are a creator of your thoughts and your mind and your life, and play with it. It's play. That's the other point. It's play. Self-development doesn't have to be so serious or like self-work.
Okay.
Like this is what's going on. It's like, play with it. See if that works. If it doesn't work, go somewhere else. Do something else. Like, go another route. Something's going to work, and you're going to know when it works because it works.
I love that.
Yeah.
So if something's not working, it's not you. Right. Have some more fun.
Yeah.
Play around, see what happens.
Yes.
Okay, good. I love it. All right. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for tuning in. If someone wants to follow you or get in contact with you, maybe they'll send you a DM about love. Maybe you'll get a date out.
Yeah, okay, cool. My Instagram is at it's Aubrie. Aubrie Pohl is my name. Movement Leadership is my website, but it's MOVEMEANT leadership.com.
So that's movement.
We're meant to move. No! Do it. No, movement. Like we're meant to move.
Now I get it. Okay. I'm very bad at grammar. So yeah. Perfect. Excellent. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy. Yeah.
See you. Thanks.
Bye.